Lie still and break, for a dream's sake. Podfic's note. As this fic deals with heavy topics, please make sure you've read the content warnings which I've listed in the description below before proceeding. Chapter 7. After neurological damage, there's always a chance that a stroke might happen. Even with Recovery Girl's quirk doing what it can for the rest of his body, for a few weeks Shota is at a higher risk than usual, so he's put under stroke watch. It's a strict regime. No strenuous exercise, instructions to stop whatever he's doing the moment he gets a headache, someone with him at all times. The first two conditions are frustrating, but bearable. With a still healing broken arm, it's not like he could partake in physical activity, and his class load has been suspiciously lightened, leaving plenty of time for rest. Shota knows it's Nezu's doing. Vlad, Snipe, and Nemuri picking up his classes. The third condition drives him mad very quickly. Shota isn't a people person on the best of days, and these first days out of the hospital are definitely not the best of days. Hizashi all but moves into his apartment. Shota doesn't mind having the man in his space. In their lives, it's happened at times that both men have needed, and wanted, such close proximity. Their first year of heroism had been hard, far too terrible to bear on their own, and though they'd both had an apartment back then, they'd been more often than not sleeping on the other's couch or bed. It's not the lack of space Shota resents so much as the lack of normalcy. He wants to go back to class, to heroics, to midnight patrols and 3 a.m. pit stops at the cat cafe, to Squiggles being the only one to greet him home when all that Shota needs is a shower and a bed. Squiggles is murky gray with haphazard ginger stripes. He looks like a 4-year-old has taken a ginger marker to his back, hence his name. Squiggles is also a cat that turns limp whenever he's picked up, and tends to ambush Shota when he's not looking, zooming out from random hideouts in the apartment. Shota loves it, keeps him on his toes. Hizashi is his best friend, and Shota will be forever grateful to have Hizashi in his life. In fact, he likes having him around more than he admits even to himself. At the end of a long day, Squiggles and Hizashi are the only living beings Shota can tolerate. But for all that he is kind, smart, and amazing in his own way, Hizashi isn't subtle. And his worried glances and slightly too bright grins only throw Shota back to the reality he'd like to ignore right now. That he's a stroke risk, that he didn't come out of the USJ unscathed, that he took a hit and is still reeling. Shota would very much like not to reel. It comes to a head one evening when Shota longs to be alone in his own home and Hizashi's hovering is extra grating. Somehow they find themselves spatting at each other until Shota decides it's best to get some air and cool down, and Hizashi's hand on his arm stops him at the door. "Where are you going?" "The convenience store." "At this hour? And fuck, does the man not know Shota at all?" Sure, okay, let me get my shoes on." "You're not coming with me." Hizashi frowns. "Of course I am." Shota grits his teeth. "It's just a 5-minute walk to the konbini." Hizashi's cheeks flush with annoyance. "The doctors said—" "For fuck's sake, Hizashi, leave off a little. Why do you think I need to walk by myself in the first place?" The man's pale green eyes flash, and he opens his mouth to retort, and visibly stops himself. He takes one long inhale, releases it slowly. We shouldn't fight." And he turns on his heels and puts space between themselves by getting behind the open kitchen counter. Shota sees red. Fist clench, he follows. "Are you done mollycoddling me? I can handle a little shouting. I won't break." Hizashi whirls around and his hands are fisted around the sides of his jacket, like he has to physically restrain himself from launching forward. "No, you can't, and I'm not done, because elevated blood pressure puts you at higher risk, Shota. If we fight, you could have a stroke." The words fall leaden and weighted between them, and suddenly Shota wants nothing to do with them. But Hizashi is not a subtle man, and he is as brave as they come. He doesn't let sleeping dogs lie. "I'm sorry. I know you don't want to think about it, but I have to." His friend comes a step closer. "I have to, because if it happens again and I can't save you—" Hizashi's voice breaks. Shota steps back, wrestling his anger down. If Hizashi is near tears, obviously this is much bigger than Shota's mild annoyance at Hizashi's hovering. If only Shota was equipped to deal with this. But Hizashi visibly gains control over himself. Instead of crying, he just sniffles and busies himself with putting the dried cutlery in the cupboards. Try putting yourself in my shoes for a minute, Shota. Just try. For a thought exercise. So Shota takes a deep breath, then another, and does. He pictures Hisashi lying in his hospital bed, his hair shorter than Shota's ever seen it, bandages and a net around his head, casts on his arms. He pictures Hisashi on the floor because a stroke felled him. He pictures Hisashi lifeless because all of Shota's first aid skills were simply not enough. He pictures Hisashi dead because Shota couldn't save him. The next time Shota takes a breath, it's shuddering and comes out as a sigh. Leaning against the counter, Hisashi's watching him. Okay, you're right. I'm sorry, Hisashi. I hadn't realized. Shota crosses his arms. I'm an insensitive prick. Hey! Don't badmouth my friend, meanie! Hisashi's smile almost reaches his eyes. Shota's heart squeezes because he has been insensitive. I need to be better at this, acknowledging I went through something big. And remembering I'm not the only one who did. Look, I suck at this, but I appreciate it all, Hisashi. It's hard to accept that I can't just go back to normal, but it's illogical of me to take it out on you. It's fine. At Shota's dubious glance, Hisashi huffs. It's fine. Just Shota, just tell me, please, if you need anything. Even if it's space or silence or someone else with you, I don't mind. I promise whatever it is, so long as you're not alone. And in return, I'll do my best not to hover, okay? Shota nods. Sudden exhaustion crashes into him and he hates that the doctors may have had a point when they insisted he needed to rest. I needed a nap, he says. On the couch, with squiggles. It's an olive branch, and they both know it. Sure thing, pro hero, sleepyhead. This time Hisashi gives a real grin. Shota tucks his chin in his capture weapon to hide how pleased he is to see it. He scoops up his cat, who predictably turns limp, and is asleep as soon as he's lain flat. It's his class that keeps him sane. The first time Shota stands in front of his class's door, he feels like he can finally breathe. Here is normal. Here is safe. They are safe. His students do him proud, at their desks and ready for lessons at the ring of the bell. Shota pushes the door and shuffles more than walks to the teacher's desk. At first, they startle and yelp, and one of them squawks, with surprise, taking in his appearance. He looks okay, all things considered, but to their eyes, he probably looks fairly beaten up. Looks like nobody told them I'd be back today. Then, they take in the shorter hair, the new scar under Shota's right eye, which he only ever remembers when someone's gaze lingers on it a tad too long, and the heavy arm sling still encasing his right arm. There's a brief moment of silence, like they're acknowledging the weight of his injuries. Shota's the one to break it, because he'll have his normal, thank you very much. Morning, class. Today we need to talk about an important subject. And before Shota can even mention the sports festival, Asui, small, stoic, strong Asui has tears running down her face. Ashiro lets out a meep, and Kirishima all but jumps to his feet, and his students are all abandoning their seats, pushing toward the front, crowding around with two bright eyes, kind words, and kinder, butterfly-light touches, a quick check to make sure he's real. Shota's eyes widen because holy fuck he hadn't expected this, and he barely knows what to do under 18 students' focused, physical attention. His heart rate picks up and he finds himself backing up a step, needing to put distance between himself and the unreal situation he finds himself in. Back off, you fucking extras, let the goddamn man breathe! Shota hears the warning sound of low-key explosions and he swings his gaze to Bakugo, who's standing at the back of the crowd, quirk firing up, but suspiciously far from his desk. Ida takes up the call and arm chops in front of Shota to get him breathing space. Bless little Tenya's large heart. The students back off suddenly, almost falling on top of each other in their haste to reverse any damage they've done, apologizing and grateful and so goddamn happy to see him. Him, Aizawa Shota, destroyer of kids' inflated egos and expeller extraordinaire. A sunburst in his chest melts away his alarm. High class. He starts again, and though he hides his smile in his capture weapon, he hopes his eyes are telling them all that he wants them to know, all that he can't bring himself to say. I'm back. Some of their cheeks are still wet, some of their hands are still trembling. Todoroki's expression is still mostly blank and Bakugo's mostly scowling, and yet they all smile back at him before they bow. Welcome back, Sensei! How many times has Ida made them rehearse this? For a second, as he looks over his students' faces, Shota feels something isn't quite right. There's one bright-eyed grin missing. Slowly, he counts his kids, running his eyes over each, taking in that they are safe, healthy, happy. 18. That's right. No one missing. Something that had stayed tense and coiled in his chest ever since he woke up finally relaxes, and Shota thinks he'll sleep much, much better tonight. All right, kids, take your seat. We need to talk about the sports festival. Shota stays in his class after that. He could, and probably should, retire to the faculty break room's couch. He'll probably do that tomorrow. But for now, he wants to hear the class, wants to be able to doze off and wake up in a bleary daze and know that his students are safe, because they're here and happy. The other teachers don't question why an inhabited yellow sleeping bag hangs at the back of their classroom. The students quickly settle down and leave him be. After his first nap, Shota finds a bottle of water propped up in front of him. He dozes off again, and every time he opens his eyes after that, the pile of snacks has grown. He's left staring cross-eyed and muddle-headed at jelly pouches of every flavor, little origami cranes, a slice of cake that looks freshly made, French dragées, and a very puzzling cat toy. Shota wakes up with a jolt when a stir rises among his kids. The atmosphere in the classroom's changed, charged with irritation, alarm, determination, and a tinge of fear. With practiced ease, he's rolling out of his sleeping bag in a second, ignoring the way the snacks roll away as he pushes his way to the front of his class. He catches the tail end of a Class 1B hero wannabe's rant on how his students had been lucky to face villains and how pathetic they'd been. Shota opens his mouth to intervene when another student piles up on the blonde kid's words, ending his own rant with, "Consider this a declaration of war." Shota inhales a deep breath, takes one look at the slick-haired blonde and the lavender-haired wonder boy. "No," Shota says. He doesn't have words right now, but his glare speaks for itself. Like hell will he stand for anyone to verbally abuse kids who had to fight for their lives a scant 10 days ago. The lavender-haired boy goes white-faced. Eraserhead. And now Shota recalls who he is. Nezu's spoken to him about this Gen Ed student at the beginning of the year before the USJ. Shinso, was it? Shota had been willing to assess the kid's potential for a transfer. So far, he's not impressed. Shota grunts in acknowledgement. He catches Vlad King's eyes over the crowd. The teachers just arrived, alerted by the commotion. "You got him?" He adjusts his chin towards Monoma. Vlad King nods, his square face set in a serious expression, and Shota knows Class 1B's kids are about to get a reality check. "Wait for me," he tells Lavender Hair, then finds Yayorozu and Ida in the crowd. They look a little pale, but not overly bothered. Thank God for the resilience of teens. Make sure everyone's okay and knows the rules of engagement of the sports festival. The most important of which, competitiveness starts on the field and stays there. Both kids nod, and Shota lowers his voice further. If you, any of you, need to talk, you can find me or Hound Dog's door is always open. Nothing wrong with needing help. Got it? Another unsmiling nod from Yayorozu and some arm-chopping from Ida, and Shota's leaving them to it, jerking his head to Lavender Hair. Shota stays silent for long minutes, the time it takes for them to reach a private conference room. He swipes the card reader with his teacher pass, and the door unlocks with a click. Inside. And shit, the kid looks about to soil his pants at Shota's tone, but Shota can't help his scowl because the corridor lights are hitting at precisely the right angle to tear through his head, and he really, really wants to sleep. But there's a kid who needs some serious guidance before he burns the very bridges that would save his life later down the line. As Shota pauses over the conference room's threshold, a security camera in the corner of the corridor swivels toward him, its power light flickering like a question. It's okay, Shota signs, knowing Nezu's ridiculously high intelligence and deep empathy will have driven him to learn sign language the first time he came across a hard-of-hearing student, even if he can't handle most of the signs with his paws. The camera blinks and swivels back to its optimal position. Your name is Shinso, right? Yes, Shinso Hitoshi, sir. Gen Ed? Class 1C, sir. Drop the sir. You want to transfer to the hero course. The kid swallows. I do. Shota considers him in silence. How did you know about me wanting to transfer? I work for Nezu. Shinso frowns like that's not an answer, but doesn't dare ask again. He doesn't know what to do with his hands. They tighten on his knees. Why? Shota finally asks. Why what? Why did you declare war on my students? Because I want to use the sports festival to prove my worth and transfer, just like you did. For a brief moment, the boy's eyes shine, and Shota has to repress an impatient sigh. Another fanboy. What are you talking about, Shota? There hasn't been any other fanboy. But Shinso's expression darkens. I couldn't make it during the entrance exam. I failed the hero qualifications. My quirk's brainwashing. It didn't work against robots. Shota steeples his hands together, leans forward with his elbows on his knees. He gives a slow blink. Hagakure in 1A didn't take out a single robot. She earned all her points helping other students. So did Koda. They both got in. Shinso's throat clicks. Oh. Shota hardens himself. He needs to push. He needs to know if Shinso does have potential or if transferring him will just be a waste of time. Why do you want to transfer to the hero course when you made it into Gen Ed? Because Gen Ed is great, but it's not enough. I want to help people. I want to save them. Do you? Yes. There's conviction there, and yet you didn't help anyone at the entrance exam. And today, you went out of your way to aggressively challenge other students. Where's that savior mentality? Shinso remains silent. Shota taps his fingers together. I'll ask you again. Why do you want to transfer to the hero course, Shinso? The kid's eyes are rooted to the ground, but his hands on his knees are clenched. His whisper is full of rage. To prove them wrong. The bullies? All the ones who told you your quirk marked you as a villain? Yeah, those. There you go. Thanks for being honest. Shinso takes a shuddering breath and looks Shota right in the eye. Does that mean I'm not fit to transfer? Brave kid. Shota doesn't smile. Not necessarily. Heaven knows Bakugo certainly isn't in my class for altruistic reasons. It means you know where you're coming from and can choose how you want to behave going forward. And kid, I get it. I really do. The world's unfair. The world is unfair for more reasons than one. And what is that niggling feeling that the world pulled a particularly hard one on Shota recently? The USJ, of course. Must be. Right? Shota shakes his head, dismissing the thought. There's a kid who needs his help. You probably got shit all your life for your quirk. The entrance exam is ridiculously biased toward physical prowess, and you probably have a chip on your shoulder the size of Hokkaido because of these reasons. I agree that it's unfair, and your feelings are valid. But you can't go around verbally assaulting anyone. It's good to be competitive, but there's a time and place for it. Shinso blinks slowly. Confusion and insecurity wore on his face. Shota represses a sigh and resigns himself to continue talking. He needs to break this boy's walls down and then help them rebuild them back up right. You can't say you're a victim of assumptions and then turn around and make some of your own. Every one of the kids in that class fought damn hard to get where they are and stay where they are. They didn't have it easy. They're not entitled. Well, some of them are, but it's not Shinso's place to judge them or correct them. It's Shota's. The fact that they showed up to class at all of them, day after day, when they'd been involved in a villain attack where their lives were put at risk, an attack that nearly did in 2 of their teachers, might I add. You just don't go telling them they have it easy, kid, and you sure as hell don't get to tell them this is war. It isn't. All you've achieved by trying to talk them down is make yourself feel a bit better, make me singularly unimpressed, and perhaps trigger them into having nightmares or panic attacks. Is that what you want to do? No. The lavender-haired boy whispers, and his eyes are wide, because shit. Teenagers are self-centered, and he's probably never considered that anyone other than him could be having issues. Shota doesn't roll his eyes, but it's a close thing. You want to become a hero, don't you, Shinso? Yeah, the boy whispers back. His posture is stiff, as if he's expecting Shota to dash his dreams to the ground, but that's not Shota's point. He's read the kid's file, he's discussed it with Nezu, he thinks there's potential there, and both of them hate unexploited potential. But they can't do anything if the student themselves is the one wasting it. Shota catches Shinso's eyes because he has an important point to make. It's fine to want that. It's fine to fight hard for it. But you've got to draw lines, Shinso. If you become a hero, some of these kids are going to be the only thing standing between you and death sometimes. A lone wolf hero is a hero that dies quickly, you hear me? I'm not here to make friends. I don't need them. I want to be an underground hero, Shinso mumbles, but his confidence has crumbled. It was nothing but brashness and empty bluster, a way of psyching himself up against opponents he believes to be better than he is. Shota clicks his tongue. If you think underground heroes don't need friends, that's goddamn stupid, kid. More than anyone, we need people who've got our backs. We often simply don't have the power, the quirk to throw our weight around with no backup of any kind. We don't get sidekicks and we rarely team up, but that doesn't mean we don't have people a phone call away ready to drop everything and come help. We work with the police more often than not. And Shota trails off, hesitates, because speaking further is revealing something that's close to his heart. But the boy's eyes are large, thoughtful. He's listening. And so Shota tells him, perhaps more than anyone, underground heroes need friends, Shinso. We need someone to pick us up when we're in pieces because our patrol was a shit show and broke all the faith we had in humans. It gets fucking hard sometimes, and trust me, you'll need your people. Shota thinks of Hisashi, Nemuri, Oboro, his ridiculously caring boss, Tsukauchi, all of his colleagues, the sunburst in his chest when the kids of 1A crowded around him making sure he was safe. I wouldn't be here without friends, without people. I'd have given up a long time ago. For all that he's a bit of a misanthrope, Shota firmly, deeply believes that people are an essential part of making it through life. Whether you're a hero, or a supermarket clerk, or a green-haired middle schooler. And what a weirdly specific example to think of. So don't go around burning all your bridges just yet, okay? If the transfer goes as you wish, even if it doesn't and you end up an assistant or support rather than hero, Shinso, the kids in Class 1A will be the ones putting their lives on the line to keep you safe. They deserve a bit more than to have their trauma thrown in their face, don't they? Silently, Shinso nods. He looks close to tears. Shota can hazard a guess as to what he's thinking. I've never had a friend before. I have no idea how to make one. And doesn't that feel familiar? Shota reaches, taps 2 fingers on the teen's wrist, waits until the teen looks back at him. Right. So you've made a mistake, Shinso. That's okay, everyone does. What do you want to do about it? I apologize. I'm so sorry, Eraserhead. You didn't wrong me, Shinso. Shota leans forward, and his searing headache probably adds some intensity to his gaze, because the teen gulps and straightens. Are you ready to say the same to my class? If the boy can't forgo his pride, he won't go very far. There are others in Class 1A that are the same, that have a big chip on their shoulders. Bakugo, a stark example, Todoroki a close second, and no doubt these 2 students project too much pride for different reasons, and that's something Shota will address in due time. He's willing to help them work on it in the next 3 years, as long as they're willing to listen and trust him. Can Shinso do so? Yes, Sensei, he says. I'll apologize tomorrow. Can you arrange it? Shota smiles. Because for all that he's known them for less than a month, he knows the students of 1A. If he will let them, Shinso will be welcomed with open arms. If he will let them, they'll help him. Transfer to their class, encourage him to push himself, cope with the stress, catch him when he breaks. If he will let them, they will be Shinso's friends. They'll help him live. End of chapter 7.